So what is a microbial cleaner? A microbial cleaner is a cleaning solution that contains bacteria or microbes that are developed specifically for breaking down and consuming oil. There's different types of microbes. Some work better with food-based oil and grease. Others work with petroleum-based, things like motor oil, cutting oil, brake fluid. They're used generally to get oil out of concrete. Rather than just thin out the oil, they actually consume the oil and leave no residue. So they're used as a way of cleaning concrete in order to come back and coat them or put a floor surface on concrete, or they're used to eliminate odor. Maybe there's been some kind of oil spill in a basement, something like that, and you want to remove that oil smell. So microbial cleaners are designed for eliminating or removing oil from concrete. CoverClean HC is a microbial cleaner. We're using microbes to break down petroleum-based or hydrocarbons, that's what the HC stands for, hydrocarbons, to break them down and remove them from concrete and other porous surfaces. Unlike typical degreasers that you might find from a big box store or a DIY area, which essentially just thin out the oil. They contain solvents that thin out the oil and spread it over a thinner area or a larger area, or allow you to wash it down a drain. The actual HC microbes break down and consume, so there's no residue. So it means they're much more effective in removing the oil out of the concrete. The residue that's left in the water or in the solution is much less concentrated. The contaminants have been consumed as opposed to spread out. So very effective in cleaning industrial floors where maybe a factory has generated a lot of oil through manufacturing, or workshops, gas stations, inside, outside, where you're generating oil, petroleum-based oil, or even consumer situations or residential, like your driveway or your garage, where you may get oil stains. Okay, much more effective in removing those than a typical degreasing, citrus-based or high alkaline-based degreaser. CoverClean HC is a microbial cleaner. So it works by breaking down the oil. These microbes actually consume hydrogen and carbon and convert them into water and carbon dioxide that's easily rinsed off or washed away. So we use water to dampen the surface and to take the microbes into the porous surface, and then they can feed off that oil. So they're naturally feeding off the hydrocarbons in the oil, consuming and eliminating them. So very effective in deep cleaning oil-contaminated surfaces that you might find in a factory, you might find in a workshop, in a gas station, outside around the pumps, or that you might find in your own home, on your driveway, or in your garage. So what are the benefits of the CoverClean HC, the microbial cleaner? The major benefit is that it doesn't leave a residue, first of all. It actually consumes the oil as opposed to just thinning it out and spreading it. If you use a typical degreaser that you'll find in a big box store in a DIY area, all that's doing is essentially it's a solvent that is thinning out the oil and spreading it over a larger area, where the CoverClean HC actually consumes, actually removes it from that surface. So no residue means that then you can come back and then top coat, put another flooring surface over that concrete without it lifting or peeling. So no residue is the first benefit. It's also a environmentally friendly cleaner. There's nothing hazardous in there. It's very safe to use. It won't harm aquatic or animal life, so it's very safe to use. It eliminates the odor. That's one thing you'll notice with the CoverClean HC. Very quickly, any oil odor is removed. It will work to deeply clean the concrete. It's not just working on the surface. You're actually using water and the cleaner to soak into the surface and remove it, the oil deep in the pores, so to help or remove that oil bleeding back to the surface. It's safe to use, like I say, in an environment, in a confined. There's no VOCs, so you don't have to worry about solvent issues. This is a natural microbial cleaner with no hazardous component. So our microbial cleaner, our CoverClean HC, we're using natural occurring microbes to break down the oil, the hydrocarbons. So it's important not to use anything caustic. Just use the water to dampen, to wet the surface, and then apply the CoverClean HC. You can mop it on the floor. You can use a pump-up sprayer onto the floor. Then it needs time to dwell. It needs time to react. We recommend that you scrub it in. Use like a deck brush just to work it into the surface, and then allow it to soak into the concrete. If it starts to dry out, then apply some more cleaner, or just mist it with water. Just use a hose or a pump-up sprayer and mist the surface, keeping it wet. Remember, we're using water as our transportation vehicle, if you like, to get those microbes deep into the concrete. It's a living organism, so don't allow it to freeze. Don't allow it to get hot, normally above 120 degrees. Otherwise, you'll destroy the microbes. The longer you leave it, the more effective it is. So if you can leave it overnight, you'll get even a better clean. You should see results after 3 hours if it's heavy contamination. But if you have the time, then mist it with water and then let it soak overnight, and then come back in the morning and rinse it off. Don't mix the product with other caustic or any other types of cleaners. That can destroy the microbes itself. Like I say, don't use high temperatures, boiling water, or don't allow the chemicals to freeze. So microbial cleaners have a shelf life because essentially they're living organisms, they're microbes in a special solution, and typically they're good for 12 months. If they're stored in a cool environment, you don't want it to get too hot, you don't want to be over 120 degrees, and you don't want to be freezing. So as long as we store them in that type of environment, we're good for about 12 months. After that, they deteriorate, they break down, and they're not as effective, they're not as active as they would be within that shelf life period, that 12-month period. For cleaning oil-based contaminants, oil and diesel, the CoverClean HC is very effective. We use microbes, a blend of microbes that were developed specifically for hydrocarbons, and these products actually consume the oil and diesel, as opposed to just thinning them out, which is typically what you get from a degreaser that you would find in a DIY store or in a big box outlet. Right? The microbial cleaners naturally break down the oil, the hydrocarbons, and remove it from the surface. So it leaves that surface now free of contaminants, no residue, so you can now coat over that surface or apply another type of floor topping without danger of it lifting and peeling or delaminating. The microbial cleaner is actually a green cleaner, so you're not dealing with hazardous products, you're not dealing with VOCs, you're not dealing with products that may be harmful to marine or aquatic or plant and animal life. So it's a safe cleaner, it's an effective cleaner that leaves no residue. So the best way to apply the microbial cleaner or the CoverClean HC is to follow, some key steps. First of all, you want to sweep off any dirt, any heavy contaminants that are on the surface, scrape it up or sweep it up. Then we want to wet the surface, just using water, regular water, wet the surface, and then apply the microbial cleaner. You can mop it on the floor, you can use a pump-up sprayer, low pressure spray. That's probably one of the best ways to apply it. Then use a deck brush to scrub it into the surface. We want to work the cleaner into the surface, into the concrete. So scrub it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we allow the microbial cleaner, the HC cleaner, just to soak into the floor. Keep it wet. If it starts to dry out, you can mist it again with water, again using a hose or a pump-up low pressure spray, and try and keep it wet for 2 to 3 hours. You're going to see some immediate results in the first hour, particularly in a reduction in odor. But to get that deep clean, we want that water to transport the microbes deep into the concrete. So keep it wet over 2 or 3 hours, or even overnight if you can. After that 2 or 3 hour period, come back and rinse off the residue any cleaner that's left down into the drain, or you can wet vac it up.